But I want to start by thanking the principal, also by thanking Office Manager Nina Stites. Where is she? Is she here? Because she's been working also with my staff. There are a few other people that I want to recognize. I'm going to leave you for the end. Collier County School Board member Patricia Carroll is, I believe, here. She's on her way. She's on her way. We also have Roy Terry, school board member. Here he is. Yes, there he is. Thank you, sir. I would be remiss without thanking and recognizing folks that, frankly, risk it all to keep us safe, and that is the Collier County Sheriff's Office. Thank you very much. Please convey our appreciation to your colleagues for all you do for us from the Sheriff's Department. Mason Clark, Assistant Principal of Oak Ridge Middle School, is also here. Where are you? Over there. Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here. I see in the background there a friend of mine who, when I think of common sense and patriotism, I think of Joe Whitehead. Joe, thank you for being here, sir. If you haven't had an opportunity to listen to him on the radio, you should. Here we go. Very efficient staff. School board member, Barbara Berry. Thank you. Thank you. Let me also, by the way, as I'm doing this, you've seen a group of people with shirts, and they are the folks that make me look good. They work awfully hard. Some of you have already met them before. Let me start with my District Director and Deputy Chief of Staff, Miguel Otero, who's over here. I'll skip titles, but Lourdes Cosillo, where are you? Lourdes? Giselle Reynolds, Gigi, who, by the way, who's the one who does an incredible amount of work, as everybody else does on this. Karen Harmon. Karen, how are you? Please stand up. She, by the way, runs our office here in Collier County. Karen Ramirez is also here with us. Juan Caicedo is the one who was running around here a little while ago. There he is. All right, there you go. By the way, we have a couple of interns that I want to recognize because without them, frankly, our office would not survive. Allison de la Cruz and Stephen Capriva are here, and I think, where are they? There you are. Thank you for all you do, and thanks for all your help. And I mentioned that I was going to wait, introduce her last. Wait a second. That's right. Mr. Phil Breed, Director of Security and Environmental Management, is also here. Where are you, sir? Thank you, sir. Former FBI, correct? Thank you. Thank you. I was mentioning how leadership works, and I was talking about the principal of this school. And leadership works. Bad leadership can lead to disasters. Good leadership always leads to good things. And that's what we have in this school, and that's what we have in this county, with a superintendent who has dedicated her life to better the lives of our children. It is a privilege and an honor to just be able to recognize Kamala Patton, our superintendent of schools here for Collier County. And with that, let me just very briefly, all right, just make sure that I haven't forgotten anybody. And I haven't, right? Okay. Let me tell you why we're here. First, thank you for being here. This is an event that I started doing throughout different parts of our state of Southern Florida since 2007. And it's, again, the theme is what? Protecting our children online. What's the purpose of this forum? It's to educate ourselves as parents as to, frankly, just how vulnerable our children are. Now, all of us as parents are very careful to make sure that our kids don't speak to strangers. And that, as I was saying to the members of the press a little while ago, that we make sure that we lock our doors at night, and that we close our windows, and that our kids, that we know who they're talking to. But unfortunately, in many cases, the predators are already in our homes. They're already within our homes. And they're there through the marvel of technology. Whether it's a computer, or if your child has a cell phone or has access to a cell phone, or whether you have a game console at home. And it could be one of those little portable ones that they have in their hands. Many of them have access to the internet. Or it could be one that's attached to your television set. But through the advent of technology, and our children may be speaking to other kids playing those games. Here's the problem. The predators are in all of those sites. They're playing those games to be able to talk to our children, to try to make contact with our children. So we're going to hopefully learn today how to protect our kids from some dangers that we frankly sometimes don't even know that they are there. And how we're going to do that? Well, I've got the easy part. We're going to listen to some experts who dedicate their lives to protect our families and our children every day of their working and waking day to protect our children in our lives. Now, with that, and before I introduce them, again, I introduced her, but I want her to come forward, is the wonderful superintendent, a person who, again, is the leader of our school system here, a person who needs no introduction other than what I said before. It's a privilege. It's a privilege to be able to work with her, and it's an honor to be with you today. Thank you so much.
So good evening. Good evening. Here we go. Let's try that again. Good evening. Good evening. There we go. So thank you for coming tonight. We want to thank a special thank to Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart for holding this meeting tonight and holding it here in Palmetto Ridge High School. I too want to say thank you to our board chair, Mrs. Barbara Berry, for being here, and Mr. Roy Terry. And if you don't know, Mr. Roy Terry used to be the principal here at Palmetto Ridge, so he's back home. So as superintendent, one of the major focuses is always providing a safe and secure learning environment for our students. We're very fortunate here in Collier County that we've had a 35-year ongoing working partnership and relationship with our Collier County Sheriff's Office. In that 35 years, we've managed to have the ability to have them provide Youth Relation Bureau deputies that provides coverages to all of our schools here in Collier County. Not only are they just law enforcement, they are actually SWAT-trained law enforcement officers. But the key in what they do, and that is building relationships. So they work right from elementary on to building relationships, helping make sure and instill values in our kids, making sure they understand to talk to them when there are problems. So a lot of our data that you don't see our numbers are simply cut off from the outstanding work and the relationships that these Youth Relation Bureau deputies do day in and day out within our school buildings. From that, they've instituted, even just in the last couple of years, they continue to grow their programs and their offerings, where they started just 3 years ago with 4,000 kids in the summer. They now work with 50,000 youth in their summer programs, continuing on those relationships. We are very fortunate here that we work together with our law enforcement, so along with the Collier County Sheriff's Office, we also hold monthly meetings with the City of Naples and the City of Marco Island Police, each month reviewing our security in our school and making sure that we make any appropriate adjustments. But that's not all, and that's where we don't stop. We still have other needs, and those needs are one of the reasons why we're here today. Because when we look at that need is the use of the internet, not just in our schools, but in our community, and most importantly, in our homes. So tonight, this is another opportunity that we've been provided due to our congressman that we're very thankful to provide our community with information regarding safety use of the internet. So we hope that you, like us, will continue to increase your skill set of how to help keep our children safe and providing and protection for our kids. So thank you again for being here this evening.
And with that, I believe that we have folders, right? Do we have folders? Okay, if please, when you leave, please take a folder with you, because you will find very, very important information. Read it at your leisure. Very, very important information that I think you will find very helpful as to just tips as to how to protect our children, how to protect our families, again, from these online predators. All right, so we're running, not too late, which is good. All right, let's start with the program. Let's start now with Assistant U.S. Attorney Tamacos Calderon. She is obviously from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Middle District of Florida, from the U.S. Department of Justice. Assistant U.S. Attorney, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you for coming this evening. Can everybody hear me? Thank you. I'm Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Florida, and my office is in the Fort Myers Division, just north of where we are right now. What we do for a living in that office is child pornography cases. What I do for a living in that office is child pornography cases. Specifically, any type of case that can be federally prosecuted because the use of the internet. That's all it needs, the use of the internet. Any interstate commerce case is because of the use of the internet. So anytime your children are either on their cell phones, their iPads, their computers at home, their computers outside your home, anytime they're chatting away or speaking to anybody else, that can potentially become a federal case. What I do and what my main goal is in prosecuting these cases is to keep the victims, number one, from being re-victimized. At the same time, my job is to maximize the subject's inability to prey again. So what I do is I work directly with law enforcement agents at the inception of a case and see it all the way through to the closure of the case, which is usually through a sentencing procedure. I work with the legal field, with judges, with agents, with victims, a whole array of individuals, which all comes together when an individual is arrested and prosecuted for these cases, which is our main goal, to make sure that they're off the streets and that they can never prey again on your children. So today I want to talk about two specific cases that I've worked on in the last few years in this area, just to show you some of the things that you probably already know, but that hits close to home. The first of which is an individual who is in his early 30s and preyed on a daughter of a law enforcement officer and a teacher. Those were her parents, who you would think would teach their children and know better than to have victims as children. But no. None of us are immune from this crime, whether it be a law enforcement officer, a teacher, a congressman, anyone. Just before this program began, we all were talking and discussing how we all have children of our own, and how it amazes us how our children can use the internet and our cell phones better than we can. That's the key. As long as we as parents talk to our children about what they might encounter, we may not understand it, we may not know what they're doing, but as long as we can discuss with them everything that they possibly could encounter, that's the first line of protection. This first case began when the victim, who was a 13-year-old female, was homeschooled. She had no chance of being victimized in the outside world, so her father thought, the police officer. But instead, she was home on her computer playing video games. And it was during one of those video games that she encountered the subject in this case. It was during that video game that he preyed on her and asked her to do things that she felt uncomfortable with. It was during that video game that she did not tell anyone what was occurring. It was during that video game that the subject of this case continued to use her and her mental state and prey on her until months later, when things got out of hand and her grandmother finally found out about it. We were able to pull all of the video chats that the two had had during this interaction, during this game online, and we were able to use that in court to prosecute the subject to get the maximum possible sentence. We had pure evidence that everybody should be aware of. Pure evidence that all the victim did was get online and play a video game. evidence that she thought, her words, would never be out in public. And more importantly, evidence that the subject thought no one would ever get a hold of. The video game and the online chats got out of hand, and the subject in the case wanted to come down to meet the victim in person. Luckily, law enforcement intervened, and the subject was captured before any physical contact was made. But before any physical contact was made, mental contact was made. The victim was mentally abused for months by the defendant online. To this day, the victim is still having a hard time overcoming what occurred. She is in therapy, and her parents are still shocked to the core that this could happen to their family, a law enforcement officer and a teacher's daughter who was homeschooled. What we can take from this is to teach our children that even if we don't know what they're doing online, it could be dangerous. And more importantly, even if they don't know what they're doing, it could be dangerous. This young girl, 13 years old, who thought she was playing a video game, ended up becoming a victim of a crime. The second case I want to talk to you about is a case in which children were actually victimized not only on the internet, but also physically in person. An individual that became known to us through an internet chat site actually produced child pornography of his own daughter. His own daughter was under the age of 5. It was these pictures that he was selling on the internet and giving to other individuals around the world and around the country. Pictures of his own daughter. The federal statutes we use in order to prosecute these two individuals and all the other cases that we prosecute at the U.S. Attorney's Office fall into 3 different categories. All of these have strict guidelines and strict sentences in order to ensure that these individuals do not have the ability to prey again on our children and our young, whether they be 4 years old, whether they be 13 years old, or whether they be 17 years old. The first of which of the federal guidelines that we used in these 2 cases was a production of child pornography statute. That guideline is a mandatory minimum of 15 years in prison. That means individuals who are convicted of that crime have to spend at least 15 years in prison. The second statute that we use most commonly in our office is a distribution of child pornography. That's a lesser crime than the production. This is for most individuals who share pictures online, and in my case, most of individuals who share pictures of children online in sexually explicit conduct. That has a mandatory minimum charge of 5 years in prison. Individuals must spend at least 5 years in prison if convicted of a distribution charge. All that means, somebody sends a picture that they have on their computer to somebody else's computer. That's it. Distribution of child pornography. At least 5 years in prison. Lastly, what we use most commonly in our office is a possession of child pornography charge. All that means is if you have on your computer, in any form whatsoever, a photograph, a video of a child in a sexually explicit conduct, and it doesn't have to mean a child having sex. All it means is a child in sexually explicit conduct. That has a sentence of 10 years. Those are the most common charges we use in our office in order to make sure that individuals of this nature cannot prey again on our young. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Now we're going to hear from Special Agent Brent Cox Jr. from the Federal Bureau of Investigations. He's the coordinator for child exploitation of the Child Exploitation Task Force, Tampa Division, Fort Myers Resident Agency. Special Agent, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the invitation tonight. As the Congressman said, my name is Brent Cox. I'm with the FBI's Tampa Division, Fort Myers Resident Agency, and I'm responsible for the coordination of the Child Exploitative Task Force, which includes the program of what we call Innocent Images. There are 56 field offices in the United States, and all those field offices have Innocent Images as part of what they work. To tell you what an RA is, so that you understand where I'm located at, which is just up the road, an RA is a smaller office or a satellite office out of the field division that covers the area for the division. There's 18 counties in the Tampa Division, which I'm Tampa Division, Fort Myers Resident Agency. I have 9 counties. I have from the south side of the Skyway Bridge to the bottom of Collier, and basically from Lake Okeechobee over to the Gulf. So I have all those counties: Glades, Hardy, Hendry, Manatee, Sarasota, Charlotte, Lee, and then Collier. The task force is made up of 10 task force agents. To get a force multiplier for the FBI, we look to our partners who are willing to make the commitment to fighting crime against children, and Collier is one of those counties. We have, starting off, we have 2 from Lee County, 1 from Collier, 1 from Charlotte, 1 from Manatee, 1 from Marco Island Police Department, 1 from Clewiston Police Department, 1 from Cape Coral, 1 from Sarasota Police Department, and 1 from Bradenton Police Department. And Sarasota Sheriff's Office is in the negotiation process to join the task force as well. To tell you what the Innocent Images does specifically, we are a proactive, intelligence-driven, multi-agency task force established in 2004 as a result of an investigation that occurred back as far as 1994, when we really became aware of the problem of the trading of child pornography through the internet. As the internet has grown, that ease of transmitting child pornography and victimizing children has grown exponentially. And we are seeing a resurgence of that through internet relay chat rooms and other chat devices like cell phones, and the ease of being able to access the internet. The predators that Tamara talked about and that we're going to talk about on law enforcement side, these are the best of the best. As good as I would like to think I am at manipulating people and manipulating a person to get a confession, these people beat me hands down. I mean, they are unbelievable manipulators, and they know how to groom children from the very beginning that they make contact. So what we target is online organizations, enterprise, and community, our communications, and that are utilized to exploit children for personal gain or just for their own personal pleasure. As Tamara mentioned about the selling of child pornography, these people will manipulate the children to expose themselves, a lot of times on Skype, and they'll take a picture of the person exposing themselves on Skype, or they'll coax the person to take pictures of them through their cell phones and then text that or send that via text to the target. We see a lot of this coming up through the schools, where it starts off with a student that's underage convincing another underage child to send texts back and forth of explicit nature of themselves, and then once the person has that, then they pass it to their friends, and then their friends pass it around, and it gets on the internet, and then of course once it's on the internet, it's gone forever. Gone forever, the fact that we can never retrieve it. The victim will be victimized repeatedly every time those images are looked at. We also target the producers of child pornography, as Tamara mentioned. We also look for individuals that transfer services through minors in large volumes of possessors of child pornography. The way we do that is we operate in an undercover capacity by targeting internet websites, news groups, internet relay chat channels, online groups and organizations, peer-to-peer, which is a huge exchange of child pornography. If you remember back to, if you're been listening to the media and the internet and those kind of things, it started out with Napster, was probably the biggest violator of it, of exchanging files, what we call peer-to-peer. And Napster's been shut down, and they've moved on to like LimeWire and Shiraz and those kind of things. Bulletin board systems and social networks. We're seeing a huge increase of runaways posting ads for themselves on Backspace and Backpage and Craigslist, you name it, and they're posting advertisements on it on those places for the exchange of sex for money, and they're being manipulated by varying groups. We get our leads from citizen complaints such as you, calling us to tell us that you saw your child's computer and you saw an image that disturbed you. We also get leads from online providers such as AOL or PhotoBucket will contact us and let us know that they have had a person posting images that are not appropriate for their organization. We also receive referrals from law enforcement organizations, and then the vast majority of our operations are, like I said, in the undercover capacity, where we solicit people to send us images, and then we try to set up an opportunity to meet them in an undercover capacity, and then, of course, effect the arrest. So that's a little overview of the innocent images, and I'll turn it over to my cohort from ICE, Brian.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brendan Quigley. I'm a supervisory special agent with the Department of Homeland Security here in Fort Myers. Touch on a couple of things this evening. At the risk of being repetitive, a lot of the things that Agent Cox spoke of would fall under the same thing that my agency does as well. So, again, not to be too repetitive, I just want to touch on a couple of things with my agency and some things that we feel that you as parents can do in this area. Just a little overview of my agency. Department of Homeland Security, we're Homeland Security Investigations, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Okay, so people will say, what does Immigration and Customs Enforcement have to do with child pornography? Okay, agency, back when they created the Department of Homeland Security, they merged the United States Customs Service, in which I was a special agent with the Customs Service, with Immigration and Naturalization Service. As part of our duties, we basically protect national security, public safety, and border security. And involving crimes against children, both home and abroad, are part of our duties. As a customs agent, we used to work a lot of child pornography back then, but it was very different. And when the internet came to be, it changed tremendously. When I was a younger customs agent, when we work child pornography type cases, it involved mainly being transmitted through mail, the regular mail, okay? And at the time, a lot of the child pornography was produced over in Europe and in Asia, and they would have to mail it. They'd be either videos or magazines or whatever, and they'd mail it over to the United States. And hopefully we would get lucky enough to intercept it at some of our mail facilities, or the inspectors would intercept it, and then they'd turn it over to the agents, and we would work the investigations. Well, those are very hit or miss, because as you know, there's a huge volume that comes through the mail, and whether we would get that or not would be kind of hit or miss back then. Well, with the internet, things have changed, and it's opened up incredible doors for pedophiles and the predators out there when it comes to child pornography. As Tamara was speaking about child pornography, possession, distribution, production, we also get involved in human trafficking, involving child prostitution, child sex tourism as well. We're members of the Child Abduction Response Team, which FDLE heads up here. Operation Predator is what my agency is one of our main our programs we have. And you see, we have agents all over the world, and we work with all the nations with this global effort with child pornography, which is very much a global effort. Since the agency was created again in 2003, we have approximately 8,000 and climbing, a number of arrests involving these type of investigations. Again, working with Tam's office, we work with Brett's office here with the FBI, Ken here with the Sheriff's Department. National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is just a wealth of leads and knowledge for us. The internet community, we work with the internet service providers, the social media sites, Google, Web, Yahoo. We deal with them on a daily basis as they assist us on these investigations, helping us identify these people that use the internet. What I just want to touch on is for you as parents. Now, I'm a parent myself. I have a 12-year-old daughter amongst some of my kids, but I was talking to Tama before we started, and I was making the comment of how it's incredible how my 12-year-old daughter knows so much about the internet and electronic devices. I just recently got an iPhone here at work, and she told me how to set it up. And she told me how to download apps, and she told me how to face chat, and she told me all this stuff, and she's 12 years old. So I'm looking, and having my experience in working these type of investigations and having a 12-year-old daughter, I'm looking at this and going, wow, this is kind of scary. She's literally saying, hey, Dad, just do this, boom, 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 And with the internet, the risk for these children with cyberbullying and the immense exposure to inappropriate material on the internet, predators, kids revealing too much of themselves when they get online. So I just want to leave something with you tonight, and that's probably the best defense on the internet is going to be you as a parent. You need to know what your kids are doing, know what your kids are doing online, and keep track of that. And as I say, as a parent myself, that's something I try to do. I'm constantly checking, internet history pages, that type of stuff, to see what's going on, because you can never know too much, right? These are just some tips that I've come up with that can help you out. Keep the computer in a high traffic area of your home. That way, your kids won't want to be looking at stuff they shouldn't be looking at if you're going to be there to see them doing it. You can establish limits for which online sites children may visit and for how long they can do it. Set a time limit. They can be online for so long, per night, how many nights a week, that type of stuff. It's very mobile. You have the cell phones, gaming devices, laptops. Sit down with your child. Surf the net with them. See what they like to do. See what they like to look at. know who their friends are, know who they're connecting with online for their instant messaging, the social networking, emailing, webcams. And again, just I would maintain a dialogue with your child about this type of stuff. I just want to do a quick case synopsis that we recently did here in my office. My office, we have 5 counties here in Southwest Florida, Collier and Lee being 2 of those counties. And again, we work closely with the Sheriff's Department here, the Sheriff's Department up in Lee County, and we work with the FBI and, of course, with Tam's office. This is one of the cases we worked with Tam's office. And this particular type of case was what we call, it was a file sharing case where we had an undercover agent who was online, and there was someone, this guy, Mr. Nichols, was also online, and they would, Mr. Nichols would transmit child pornography photographs to our undercover agent. Okay, and I don't even want to talk about what kind of photographs they were, but that would be the distribution of the child pornography. As a result of that, and this undercover agent was halfway across the country, okay, through investigation, determined the IP address, came back here to Fort Myers, okay. We do our investigation, we find out that he is a teacher's aide over in Lee County, and a big brother. In November, we execute a search warrant on his apartment. We find, we get his computers. He was also using his telephone. And there was more than 57,000 images and 400 videos between his computer and his telephone. During the interview with him, he confessed, and one of the things he confessed to was that he was molesting a young boy up in Hernando County, and this young boy was assigned to him as part of his being a mentor in the Big Brother program. We worked with the state, and in the end, he pled guilty, 15 years in federal prison and 20 years in the state prison. Just a list here of some of the resources that are out there that you can look at. But again, the one thing I'd just like to leave with you, and that's the theme of this, I think, of this forum here, is you as parents need to know and keep track and monitor what your kids are doing online, because mainly you're going to be the best defense. Thank you.
Now we're going to hear from Sergeant Ken Becker from our very own Collier County Sheriff's Office, from the Major Crimes Bureau Exploitation Unit. Sergeant Becker, the floor is yours, sir.
First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Congressman for putting this forum together, and everybody that's helped the audience for being here tonight. I've been doing this at the Sheriff's Office since 2003. We're very lucky here in Collier County. We've had 2 sheriffs that are very proactive in protecting our children. Sheriff Hunter back in 2003 put together the Special Victims and Exploitation Unit, and Sheriff Rambosk, when he took office, has continued that mission. And what we've been allowed to do is we've got about 12 detectives that work on nothing but child crimes. We've got the Special Victims Unit that works on all child abuse and sexual abuse, and we've got our Exploitation Unit. The Exploitation Unit does a number of things. It takes and tracks down and investigates all our missing children's reports. We track all the sex offenders in the county to make sure we know where they're at and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing as far as registration, not being in parks, things along those lines. And then we also have a detective, like they had stated, up at the FBI with the innocent images working on a federal level. And we've got a detective here in town that works on all of the crime, internet cases here in Collier County. He works cases that are brought into us by complaints from citizens, cyber tips from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and he also works proactive cases, whether it's a peer-to-peer, like was mentioned earlier. And I don't know if anyone really understands what's going on with the predators these days, but peer-to-peer programs, which were best known for sharing music, predators are now using those programs to share their child pornography. So all somebody has to do is go onto the internet, enter one of these programs, and they can do a search for child pornography, and it'll come up on their computer listing all the child pornography that's available out there to be shared amongst these individuals. So what we do is we've got a program that allows us to identify the IP address from where these images are being shared from. We can then get search warrants after we get the subpoenas back to find out where the house is at, and we can go execute a search warrant on that house, on that computer, and recover the images and take the incident from there. This is a prime example of why, if you've got a wireless computer in your home, that you make sure it is secure. Because even though you're following all the rules online, and your children may be following the rules online, if your internet is not secure, that doesn't prevent you from being safe, because anyone can get within your neighborhood, they can log on to your internet, and they can do any type of criminal activity they want. So if they're downloading and sharing child pornography, and we get that case, we're going to be knocking on your door thinking that you're involved in the child pornography. And obviously, we've got a safeguard to make sure that when we do an execution on a search warrant in this type of case, that we make sure that we are at the right place and we get the right person. So just because we have a search warrant for that house doesn't mean that we're going to kick the door in and we're going to go and arrest the occupants. We go in, we execute the search warrant. We've got a forensics unit also with 2 forensic specialists. They go with us on the search warrants. Once we get in there, we access the computer, we find out what images are on the computer, and try to put somebody behind the keyboard. There are some cases where we've got there and it's unsecure wireless, and we've realized that we're executing a search warrant on the house where the child pornography was shared, but it's not on the computer in that house or the people that live in that house. We have had a case here in Collier County. We executed a search warrant, ran across that, but in the process from talking to the lady that lived in the house, we discovered that the neighbor had set up their Wi-Fi, and for them doing that, they agreed to let him use their internet service. So we now knew where our bad guy was at, and we went over there and we executed and knock and talk, made contact with him. He gave us permission to look at his computer, and we were able to discover that there was child pornography on that case, and we worked that case criminally on the neighbor. There are a number of things, like we said, as far as child pornography. The most important thing about child pornography in these type of cases is that we're not going to be able to arrest ourselves out of this. Not on a local level, a state level, or a federal level. The only way we are going to get a grasp on child pornography and our children being victimized is with communication, education, and responsible internet use. And that's where you come in play. Obviously, we will do our part, but it's important that parents get involved with their children and what they're doing online. You know, I've always been amazed that looking at the crowd here, it's apparent that there's probably quite a few people out there that have children that drive vehicles or are very close to driving. And you know, when our child is getting ready to drive, we spend countless hours telling them the safety rules and the do's and don'ts of driving vehicles. And then we sit with them for a year and drive the vehicle with them while we're in the car with them and teaching them rules that they're supposed to be abiding and safe practices. But when it comes to a keyboard to a computer or a keyboard to a smartphone, we hand it over to them without any training or any education. It is very important that we improve on that as law enforcement officers and as parents. Oh, Todd. No, they were talking earlier about the grooming process and what goes on with that. The problem we have, unfortunately, is our children have grown up with computers and with smartphones. They've grown up taking pictures of each other, passing them around, and they don't think of the consequences many times. So a lot of the times we've got our children exploiting themselves, and these people are out there taking advantage of that. They'll start out with sexual solicitation and approachment. Whether it's somebody on a Facebook or whether it's somebody chatting, they're grooming these children. They're searching for them. They're looking at Facebooks, anything that's out there that can identify a child that they can focus in on. And once they do that, they then make the attempt to solicit that child and make contact with them. And it may be simple as just chatting with them and might be acting like they're a different friend of theirs or somebody that they go to school with. And once they open up those lines of communication, they've now got their hook in there, and they're going to continue to communicate with that child and build their trust. A lot of times the children that are victimized are the children that don't always fit in the school system or with friends. And a lot of times these people see that, and they'll take these children, they'll befriend them, and they'll start making their move. And once they do that and build their confidence, little by little, they'll start asking them for favors. It may be a picture of themselves. The next thing you know, they're asking for nude pictures of themselves, and they're very persistent in it to the point where the child is going to eventually, or a lot of times, will text or send a picture of themselves in a compromising position. And that is when it just starts snowballing. Because once they get that picture, there's no turning back. They're going to do whatever they can to get more pictures of that child and to eventually meet that child in person. And if the child refuses, they just flip it on them and they start mentioning that I've got a picture of you that you sent to me, and if you don't come and meet me or send me more pictures, I'm going to tell your mom or I'm going to tell all your friends, and you're going to be embarrassed and you're not going to be able to live with yourself. So that's how the solicitation process starts. Once they get to that point, then obviously, like I said, it next to the next step. And that's when it becomes to the point where they try to meet that child. We have a number of cases that we've worked here in Collier County with traveler cases within the county and outside the county. We're also part of the Internet Crimes Against Children, which comes in very handy because a lot of times these people will travel from quite far distance in order to meet a child. So even though they're meeting a child here in Collier County, they may be from the East Coast, they may be from out of state. And since we're part of the Internet Crimes Against Children, whenever we execute an arrest, if we have a traveler or somebody that's sharing child pornography, if that person isn't from here in Collier County, we can make contact with another Internet Crimes Against Children agency, whether it's in Michigan or New Orleans or over on the East Coast, and that agency will execute a search warrant on us on that side location and get the search warrant executed so that we can get the computer and get the evidence we need for it. But that, that's not the only things that these people do. We've also got to deal with the unwanted exposure. A lot of times people are just putting child pornography out there on different websites and emails that'll pop up on your computer. We recently had a case where Facebook was getting inundated with a child pornography video that was about 6 minutes long. And when you went into Facebook and went to pop on it thinking you were watching a different video or downloading an app or something, this child pornography image was coming up and playing on your computer for 6 minutes. Another thing we've got is the harassment and the child bullying. If they're not soliciting them, we've got people bullying our kids on the computer. They're posting different things on their Facebook and social networking sites, and they're doing whatever they can to try to embarrass this person. A lot of times they'll put a Facebook page that's totally bogus together just to harass somebody. And a lot of times the kids don't think that it's that big of a deal, but in reality it is, because it's going to keep escalating and escalating. We've heard of the incidences in the different colleges and around the country where children have actually committed suicide because of the embarrassment and harassment they've got during childhood bullying. The really scary thing is the fact that each year, over 800,000 children go missing within the United States. A lot of them come home, fortunately. A lot of times it's just a case of maybe the family not communicating, the child getting upset and leaving for a couple hours or a couple of nights. And the majority of the missing persons come home. But unfortunately, there are those children that never come home. Here in Collier County, we've got a number of cases that go on for 20 and 30 years, and we have no idea where that individual is at. And just 4 years ago, we had a 6-year-old child out in Immokalee that disappeared, and there's been no sight of him since he left. He was a 6-year-old child with special needs, had the mentality of a 2-year-old, and we searched for him for a week, but we never able to find him. So not only have our children got to worry about the risk that they're at when they're away from home, you know, they had made mention of Facebook and the different websites where children are being victimized. But our children are very vulnerable and we need to protect them. The scary fact is that 1 in 4 of our children, our daughters, will be sexually abused before they graduate from high school. And 1 in 6 boys. So to put that in perspective, if you think about it, in a classroom of 25 kids, there's going to be anywhere from 4 to 5 of those children that are sexually abused before they even graduate from high school. And the real sad fact is that because of the communications a lot of times between the family and law enforcement, it's never reported to law enforcement. Only 1 in 3 of those victims ever report it to law enforcement so that we can pursue it criminally and that we can get that person that's victimized these children behind bars where they belong. If we don't know about it, they are going to continue to victimize our children year after year. And not only that, but the children that are victimized aren't getting the help that they need to help them deal with the incident and make sure that they can grow up to be a productive adult in the community. The important thing for our children to understand is they may think that they know who they're talking to on the other end. They may think they're talking to a friend, but that's not the case. It can be anybody that's grooming them. And law enforcement does the same thing. That's how we work our travelers cases. We'll take on a persona of a 15 or a 14-year-old boy or girl and get into chat rooms, and it's not very long before they're being solicited to send pictures or to meet somebody. We've made a number of arrests just by doing the same thing to them, what they do to our children. So what do our children need to know and what do us as parents need to pass on to them? The important thing is that they can never meet anybody in person. It's just asking for trouble. Hopefully it'll never get to that point. If we're communicating with our children and working things out, it'll never get to that point. The other thing that our children needs to know is when they're online communicating, that they need to communicate responsibly. You know, I've done a number of these cases when I talk to kids and parents, and I like to tell them that if you're going to post something or if you're going to send an email, don't say anything or put anything out on the internet that you wouldn't want your mother, your father, your coach, your friends, your church members to see. If it doesn't get by all of them, and if you have any reservations, don't send it. Another important thing to know is our children need to talk to our parents and to your trusted loved one or a teacher, so that if something has happened to them online that they don't feel comfortable with, they know who they can go to talk about it. And the last one is keep their stuff protected. You know, they're online, they're on our social networks, and our children, unfortunately, are listing addresses, telephone numbers, the schools they go to, and somebody that's stalking them on the internet, it's just a matter of time before they gather enough information that they can go out and make contact with that child. So even if they're grooming somebody and that child refuses to meet with them, a lot of times our children are putting so much on the internet that it doesn't take them long to figure out where our child is at, whether they're going to school or whether they're at home, so that they can go get them. By knowing these rules, you empower your child to make sure that they are safe. Like I said, we need to make sure that they never believe anything that's on tape and anything that's being sent to them, because they don't know where it's coming from. As far as parents, like they said earlier, we work very closely with the National Center. So if there's anything that's happened to your child online, you can either make contact with the Sheriff's Office and report it to us, or you can contact the cyber tip line in Washington, D.C., get online and report it, and they will send a lead to the law enforcement agency that has jurisdiction for them to follow up on it. One thing that we've got, like I stated earlier, is our children exploiting themselves online and texting. We've had a real problem here in Collier County going back probably about 6 years, even before it was brought out on a national level, with sexting. We've had children as young as the elementary school, into the middle school, and into the high school, sending pictures of themselves to friends, nude photos, nude videos of sex acts, and once they send it to their friends, it's just like a wildfire. Before you know it, it's spread throughout the school system. And once it hits the school system, it's even past that. Because like they stated earlier, once something gets on the internet, it's there forever. So something that they put out there today is still going to be there for their great-great-great-grandchildren to see. It's important for parents to make sure that you're monitoring everything that your children does online. But you need to realize, not only put it in a place where you can see it in the house, like the living room or the dining room, but you need to realize that 60% of the time, children are online somewhere other than their house. So even though you set boundaries and rules for them, you still need to follow up on that and try to figure out what they're doing online, because they could be on a